Welcome back everyone, it's Charlie. This is my Full House of the Dragon episode 9 video. There are a whole bunch of Easter eggs and references, so we'll break it all down. If you're brand new to the channel, I'm doing videos for all the episodes. Be sure to subscribe to get them, and careful for spoilers from the episode if you haven't seen it yet. We'll start at the beginning and work our way through shot by shot, talking about Easter eggs and WTF moments. But the Dance of the Dragons has finally begun, like the opening salvo has been fought. The actual episode title is The Green Council. It's a reference to the new small council that Otto Hightower creates after they usurp the crown and name Aegon II the next king, killing or purging everyone at court in the small council who was loyal to Rhaenyra. They changed the intro scene to represent Viserys' symbol, filling it with blood, denoting that he's died. Like anytime a member in the line of succession dies, their symbol fills up with blood. You also may have noticed the sapphire on one of Alicent's children's symbols here. That's for Aemon because one of his eyes, the one that got cut out, has actually been replaced by a sapphire. I think we'll actually see it in episode 10 because it seems like he takes his eye patch off in the trailer. There's also new sections to represent the children that Aegon has had with Helaena. We see them during the episode, and also the new children that Rhaenyra has had with Daemon. We actually found out about another missing child that they're going to feature during season 2. That also might happen with some of the other children because, like, for instance, Aegon and Helaena have a third child, but we haven't seen it yet, so it might just not have been born yet. So as many kids as you think there are now, there'll be more kids coming in season 2. But the actual opening starts in the moments after Viserys' death in the wee hours of the morning in the empty Iron Throne. I love the way that they start on the empty Iron Throne, just to represent what's about to happen. And it's pretty much the same deal around the rest of the Red Keep. Like, it's totally quiet, totally empty, until one of the random servant children finds that Viserys has died. If it wasn't clear, this young child here isn't one of the Targaryens, even though he's wearing red, he's just one of the servant boys. They set up the whole Varys storyline going on in the episode between Mysaria and Larys Strong, because both of them are kind of like mistress and master of whispers, so to speak, in the whole spy network that Larys tells Alicent about when he's trying to basically create the official master of whispers position on the small council, is him telling her about what's happening here, like, oh, your servant girl is actually working for the White Worm, Mysaria. When the small council convenes right after this to discuss what they're going to do immediately after, and they joke about a possible war with Dorne, the reason why they're joking about that is because Dorne still isn't part of the Seven Kingdoms. That doesn't happen till much later in the timeline. You also probably noticed that Tywin Lannister's ball is gold because Lannisters, gold reference. A Lannister always pays his debts. Sounds like he's paying his debt with his allegiance to this Green Council. But the crazy thing we find out is that they always had a plan to usurp the throne, kill Rhaenyra and Daemon and their children, no matter what happened. So even though Alicent makes this big deal in the episode about hearing Viserys' last dying wishes, they really just used that to kind of help their cause, but they had always planned to usurp the throne. It didn't matter that Viserys actually said that. Some of you are wondering about what Alicent was going to do. Like, if she didn't hear Viserys talk about Aegon and the prophecy and mistake it for Aegon II, would she still have done the same thing? That's always possible, but I think that doesn't matter because the whole idea is that it didn't matter to her father, like he was always going to usurp the throne. They wind up having a big argument about that at the end of the episode, so we'll see what's going to happen with Aegon II. Like, will he turn into another Joffrey? Because Alicent seems like she's trying to bring her father under her control. Will that work? Will it not work? Will she be able to control Aegon II? We'll see. Just remember, Cersei was not able to control Joffrey. It seems like most people on the small council were already Team Green before this, but obviously Lord Beesbury is one of the lone dissenters. Is like, wait a minute, we can't do this. This is ridiculous. R.I.P. Lord Beesbury, though, because Criston Cole kills him. The only thing about his death is that it seems like Criston Cole is surprised by actually killing him. Like, he didn't totally plan on killing him, he was just trying to get him to shut up. The way the actor who plays Criston Cole talks about his character is that he says that he's a dirtbag, and he just uses all these circumstances to do whatever he wants to do to, like, free the beast, so to speak, metaphorically and literally. Even though he has all these conversations with Aemond about being an honorable person and not getting up to all the dirty stuff that Aegon does in Flea Bottom, really the actor is saying that inside he's just as terrible a person. And I think the same is true for Aemond as well. Even though they don't spend all their nights in Flea Bottom, they're still really terrible people. You have the whole conflict with Harold Westerling and Criston Cole. It definitely seems like Criston Cole is going to try to kill him later. Even though he takes his white cloak off, I don't think he's officially resigning his post as Lord Commander of the Kingsguard. He just says he's waiting for the next king, whoever that might be, to give him orders. But Alicent basically says that Criston Cole is going to be named the next Lord Commander, so I think they're going to try and get rid of Harold Westerling no matter what. And even though they do try to make the Greens seem really shady with what's going down here, they at least want to make Alicent seem like she's trying not to hurt Rhaenyra, like she doesn't want to kill her, even though she still believes in upholding the status quo, like Aegon must be king. Because she gets so pissed off when she finds out their plans to just kill them right off. And even later in the episode, she demands of her father that they not kill them, and again to Aegon when they're on their way to the Great Sept to name him king. This is also another reference to what happened with Joffrey, Cersei, and Ned Stark. So the whole idea is that Ned Stark died in season 1, big WTF moment. Joffrey had him beheaded. But the thing is that Cersei didn't want him to do that. He went rogue and did it on his own. And it's another example of Cersei not being able to control him. Like, wait, Joffrey, you weren't supposed to do that. We were supposed to offer him clemency. That's the whole reason why he confessed. We'll see if Aegon winds up falling down that slippery slope. Like, will he become more and more terrible? Your grandfather's going to tell you to kill your sister and her family, but don't listen to that counsel. So they're trying not to completely demonize Alicent despite what the people around her and her son might wind up doing. I think that's because as we get into future seasons, as the actual Dance of the Dragons gets really crazy, like all the kids start fighting each other on Dragonback, and you start seeing bodies flying all over the place, they don't want to completely demonize either Alicent or Rhaenyra. Like, everyone involved in this conflict is going to wind up doing very, very terrible things on both sides. Side note too, during this conversation, Alicent mentions the Wall, and it's one of the only times someone on the show has mentioned the Wall, aside from Viserys, during his dying breaths in the last episode. Then we see Helaena Targaryen with her children with Aegon. She says, "It is our fate to crave always what is given to another. If one possesses a thing, the other will take it away," and that's obviously a reference to the events of this episode, them taking away Rhaenyra's crown. You also notice that she's embroidering a spider, which is a callback to the spider from the Dance of the Dragons dragon dream that she had as a girl during the last big funeral, and to Larys Strong going full Varys, like he is a spider, like Varys was the spider. If it wasn't clear, her two children with Aegon here are Jaehaerys and Jaehaera. They do have a third child, like I said, named Maelor. We might see them in season 2. The other missing child that you may have heard about is Alicent's fourth child with Viserys. Like, they had another child that they just haven't featured on the show. His name is Daeron. George R. R. Martin said that he's alive and they'll feature him during season 2. They just didn't have time to feature him during this season. When Helaena says there is a beast beneath the boards and gets really upset when Alicent starts talking to her about Aegon's whereabouts, what she's talking about is another callback to last week's episode where she made the same comment in a more jokey manner. And it's a reference to Aegon using the secret passageways to get out at night to go to Flea Bottom, and these are the places, and to spend all the time with the women. Like later in the episode, we find out that he probably has many bastards running around Flea Bottom. So that's the reason why she gets so upset when she says there's a beast beneath the boards. But I also think that it might be foreshadowing for blood and cheese stuff in future seasons. No spoilers about what that means, but if you know, you know. It's all about the secret passageways with people using them to get out of the Red Keep and into the Red Keep without being seen. You also notice that Aemond is the first person to come to Helena's chambers because they have this weird connection. Like, I don't know how Helaena feels about Aemond, but Aemond definitely feels very special about Helaena. I don't know if they have any kind of crazy Jaime-Cersei thing going on the side. Because Aemond later tells Criston Cole about his plan to eventually become king, like, it should be me. I'm the one that's studying all this stuff. I'm much better than my brother. I ride the biggest dragon in the kingdom. Low-key, I think that Aemond wants to get rid of his brother somehow and marry his sister, Helaena Targaryen. They also kind of imply there's this weird sexual connection between Criston Cole and Alicent, like, whatever you feel for me, I'm your queen. Like, there might be some weird romantic thing that developed between the two of them because there's a whole weird kink going on with Larys Strong and Alicent that we learn about later. Don't worry, I will address that in a second. The reason why multiple different groups of people are sent to find Aegon is because they're really worried about what's going to happen to him because of how fast they're trying to move, and because they don't want Aegon getting away. They imply the twin brothers are going to take Aegon somewhere where he won't have to become king, like they're going to help him get away. Alicent wants to prevent that. That's why she's asking Criston Cole to make sure that that doesn't happen, like make sure he comes back to me. Also, it's more about her taking power back from her father. Like, her father seems like he's been pushing her around this chessboard, playing the Game of Thrones with her this whole time. She even references that during the episode. So she's trying to realign power around herself, so to speak. Love Aemond's story about back during his 13th birthday party. It's time to get it wet. Aegon trying to be the good brother, helping his other brother get laid. The woman remembers him. Ah, my, have you grown? When she says that Aegon's tastes are less discerning than they used to be, that's just a reference to all the fighting pits that he goes to, like this really crazy stuff that Mysaria is trying to get rid of. That's part of the bargain that Mysaria makes with Otto Hightower. Remember, your grandson is becoming king only because of me. All the children that are fighting in those pits are just from women that had random encounters that work at the pleasure houses. So there's just a bunch of orphan kids that nobody cares about, except for people like Mysaria. We see one of Aegon's many bastards. We'll see what happens to them in the future, because if you remember in season 2, I think it was season 2 episode 1, Joffrey had the Gold Cloaks go around and kill all Robert's bastards without being able to find Gendry. Otto Hightower has all of Rhaenyra's supporters amongst the lords and ladies of the realm, like the more powerful people, the more powerful houses, either bend the knee or get kicked out. Most of them aren't killed, except for Lord Caswell. He tries to escape, but then is caught and hung inside the Red Keep. The Silent Sisters prepare Viserys' body. Remember, they're going to burn him because it's part of the Targaryen customs. One of the dragons will incinerate his body. Obviously, it's also meant to be a parallel to him doing the same thing to his wife Aemma, burning her per their customs. We get this really great scene with Rhaenys and Alicent, with her trying to convince her to come to Team Green. The funny thing here, though, is that Alicent basically insults the hell out of her and her house. She says all the things that she refused to say out loud before. She even tries to appeal to the fact that she should have been queen instead of her husband, Viserys. Like, you should have been the one to sit on the Iron Throne. My husband was just meant to read books and study history and play with his models. But the reason why Rhaenys really gets upset with her is because Alicent is just trying to uphold the status quo, saying that no, women shouldn't be on the Iron Throne. We're only meant to advise men. And Rhaenys is like, oh, hell no. Like, she calls Alicent a prisoner to the establishment, so to speak. Like, you're creating a window in that prison of yours that you're living in. During Otto Hightower's meeting with Mysaria, there's a little bit of foreshadowing too. When she says there's no power but what the people allow you to take, that's going to be a reference to future seasons because there are a couple riots that happen during the Dance of the Dragons. We'll talk about in future seasons. Some of them are a little bit spoilery, so we'll wait to talk about them. But it's another callback to Daemon telling Rhaenyra to listen to the will of the commoners, because for the most part, the commoners don't really care who their next king is or who the next ruler is, as long as there's stability in the realm. That's why during the actual coronation later, when they're actually putting the crown on Aegon's head, the crowd is just kind of like, oh, okay, I guess this is okay. Let the people cheer a little bit, but it's not like everybody is going crazy at the thought of him becoming king. Love the scene of them trying to drag Aegon out of the Great Sept. He does not want it. He's going full Jon Snow. Don't make me take the Iron Throne. But Criston Cole and Aemon show up to grab Aegon from them. They only get Eric with an A. Eric with an E is the one that gets away to go back and free Rhaenys. Also love the scene where Aegon makes this impassioned speech to Aemon that they both just take off on a ship and never come back. No one will ever find us. Let's just run away, which is meant to be a parallel for Criston Cole telling the same thing to Rhaenyra when they were younger. Let's just get out of here. We'll run to the east. Nobody will know who we are. We can do whatever we want. Then we get that crazy scene with Larys Strong telling Alicent all about Mysaria's little birds, her spy network, so to speak, to convince her to set him up as the official Master of Whispers on her new Green Small Council, her Green Council. Varys was Master of Whispers to the Mad King and then to Robert Baratheon, and then to Joffrey and so on and so forth. But the position of Master of Whispers didn't always exist. I think they're trying to say that it started around this period. When they show his cane, there's a B on it. That's meant to represent his role in Alicent's life. So you remember the conversation they had in the Godswood where he was looking at the flowers, making this metaphor about how she was like a flower surviving in this foreign environment inside the Red Keep where nobody liked her, nobody supported her, but she's flourished since then. Bees pollinate flower and help them survive, so Larys has helped her survive this whole time. But the crazy dragon in the room we have to address is it seems like this whole time, part of their arrangement is that when he gives her information or helps her out, the payment that he receives from her is that she basically just feeds his kink by showing him her bare feet. Like, that's his kink. He even goes for it right in front of her. Like, she just kind of wait, like, okay, just finish so we can get out of here. Somehow that seems crazier than some of the spicier Game of Thrones scenes that we've seen so far. Rhaenys winds up getting out of the Red Keep using the secret passageways with the help of the other twin brother Eric who escaped. She's able to use the crowd to get to the Great Sept and use the confusion to get to the dragon pit and get on her dragon melees. We'll get to that part in a second. We have to talk about the coronation for a little while. They show you a lot of the items they're using at the actual coronation. They have this special scroll that the High Septon uses at each of the different coronations that seems like it goes back to the time of Aegon the Conqueror. The important thing about becoming king of Westeros is that the High Septon actually has to perform the ceremony. So even though Westeros used to have all these petty kings, these different kingdoms before the conquest, when Aegon conquered the Seven Kingdoms, right afterwards, he went to Old Town and had the High Septon of the day name him the King of Westeros. It wasn't until after that he moved the capital to King's Landing. They use Aegon the Conqueror's Valyrian steel crown. You notice it has the same red ruby in the middle of it that's on the Valyrian dagger, which they also wind up giving to Aegon II. They also give him Aegon's ancestral Valyrian blade, Blackfire, which is typically passed from each king to the next. But I love on the way to the coronation, like this is more of Aegon not wanting to be king. He doesn't believe his mother about Viserys. He never loved me. He's only half true about that. Like Viserys didn't hate his children with Alicent. He just didn't love them as much as he loved Rhaenyra. Clearly, he also loved his first wife, Aemma, way more than he loved Alicent. But when she shows him the Valyrian dagger, for like a hot second, you could see on his face like he wants to believe it. Like, I kind of don't believe you, but I really want to believe you that my father loved me. And when the Gold Cloaks usher him to the dais and they start naming him king, start performing the ceremony, it seems like he actually wants to believe the hype for a second, like he starts to drink the Kool-Aid just a little. I love the way that Helena is clocking him during the ceremony too, like everyone is kind of looking at the crowd, but Helena is staring at him. You have to remember, she has dragon dreams all the time, so she's seen Aegon's future, even though she doesn't totally understand it probably. One of her early dragon dreams was actually about Aegon II's future. I don't want to talk too much about it here because it's kind of a spoiler, but it'll probably get paid off in maybe season 2, maybe season 3. We'll see, like however many seasons the show winds up running. They implied the show will run 4 seasons, so it might be season 4. But remember the look on Aegon's face when he pulls out Blackfyre and holds it up to the crowd, like he starts to drink the Kool-Aid. Do you think that he's going to wind up being a little bit like Joffrey? Will Alicent be able to control him, so to speak? Also, important side note, one of Criston Cole's nicknames is the Kingmaker, mostly because of his support of Aegon II, but that's why I think in the episode he literally places the crown on Aegon II's head, just to pay off that reference. Then we get the awesome dragon attack by Rhaenys in her really cool looking Targaryen armor. Now it's red for Targaryens, but also her dragon, Meleys, is referred to as the Red Queen. And this is why her armor looks similar to Daemon's dragon scale armor. When she says she's afraid to leave Meleys in the dragon pit, like I'm not going to leave her behind, that's another big deal too, because you remember the dragons are basically trapped inside the dragon pit. So even though the dragons are like nuclear weapons, you'd think that they'd be super powerful, they become incredibly vulnerable when they're held inside the dragon pit. So you actually don't want that technically. Like the whole concept of the dragon pit was a bad idea. It was actually Maegor who created the dragon pit on top of the last Great Sept after a big Faith Militant uprising. So they wanted the moment of Rhaenys crashing through the top of this Great Sept to be really ironic in that sense, like, haha, we're destroying another Great Sept with dragons just like Maegor did a long time ago. But unlike Maegor, she doesn't want to kill the Greens. Remember way back in episode 1, she referenced Maegor saying that it had been a long time since the realm had experienced any real war. So there's just a lot of Maegor Easter eggs with Rhaenys' character, but she's not like Maegor at all, like she's actually a pretty good person. Even though there's a lot of collateral damage happening in here inside the Great Sept, she spares the family, I think because she doesn't want to be a complete psychopath. Like she's showing them mercy, and then takes off to Dragonstone, obviously to tell Rhaenyra about what's happened, and they can formulate their plans for the coming war, the Dance of the Dragons. If you spotted any other Easter eggs and references in the episode that I didn't talk about in the video, just write them below in the comments, and my full episode 10 finale trailer video will post next. Everyone click here for that finale trailer. I'll update the link as soon as I post it, and click here for all my other House of the Dragon videos. Thank you so much for watching, everyone stay safe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.